Imagine living on a little more than $1,000 a month. Could you pay your rent, buy gas, and put food on the table for your families with that much money? Probably not. The minimum wage was established in 1938 by the Federal Labor Standards Act at 25 cents an hour. Since then, it has been raised 23 times, most recently in 2009, to $7.25 an hour. The minimum wage has constantly fallen behind inflation. The current federal minimum wage is currently over $3 behind inflation. If it had been indexed for inflation based off the 1968 level, the minimum wage would currently be more than $10 an hour. Currently, only 27.13% of Americans actually know what the minimum wage is, a number which is both shocking and unsurprising. By a show of hands, how many of you work jobs that pay minimum wage? Now, looking at the statistics, you could reasonably assume that 2/3 of you are female and 2/3 of you work for below minimum wage. Now, for most of you who don't have families to care for, the minimum wage is more than enough for you. However, the 1.1 million Americans who are 25 and up, and the other 976,000 Americans that are between 16 and 24 that do have families to support are unable to support their families on such a low wage.
Cousins Housing Complex, next town over.
How can you possibly afford to live anywhere near here at $9.85 an hour?
It's really hard. I have a roommate. That's how I had to do it.
And how much is your rent?
My rent, if it was me by myself, it'd be $10.95.
So since there are two of you,
Split
$5.50
it
a
in
month.
half. Yep.
And how much for food?
I do get help with food stamps, but because I've had my little 10 cents raise or whatever raise, they take like 100 or so away, so I only get $3.55. And my kids, they're growing. They eat more than me. Come here, this car coming.
Sometimes Lyons eats at McDonald's, where she gets a 50% employee discount.
If you didn't work at McDonald's, could you afford to eat at McDonald's?
If it wasn't for the discount, I just wish I didn't have to depend on stuff like that, But I've stayed with fast food.
Now, after watching that clip, raise your hand if you think you could survive with 2 kids on just the minimum wage. If nothing is done, the problem will just get worse because inflation will not stop going up. Therefore, the real value of the wages will continue to decrease, even though the nominal value of the minimum wage stays the same. The minimum wage is slowly leaving workers behind, and only with your help can this be corrected. Only shop at stores that pay their employees a living wage. Write your congressman in support of a $15 minimum wage, one that can be lived on. Support the workers who are fighting for 15 in their strike against their employers. Together, we can eliminate the immortality of poverty-level wages for full-time work. Together, we can make a difference. I'm Jacob Sumner, and I approve this message. Long term, without congressional action, very little changes will be had. A bill, the Raise the Wage Act, currently sits in front of Congress. It is co-sponsored by Bernie Sanders and Patty Murray in the Senate, and Bobby Scott and Keith Ellison in the House. Now, how many of you are willing to work to end this terrible problem that is plaguing America? Good. Let's get to work. Over the course of writing the benefits of raising the minimum wage on the economy and poverty, I came to realize just how many Americans work for the minimum wage. My opinion going in was that it was immoral to let people work full-time for poverty-level wages. After I was done, my opinion has not changed. What I realized, however, was some shocking stats, including nearly 2/3 of minimum wage jobs are held by women, and nearly 2/3 of minimum wage jobs are actually jobs in which the employee is paid less than the minimum wage. They earn the tipped minimum wage, which is significantly less. I still believe the minimum wage should be raised to $15 an hour and then indexed for inflation. While I was doing research for this, I looked up pending legislation, and I came to support Senator Sanders and Senator Murray's Raise the Wage Act. It's a great way to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour over the next several years, and then it indexes the minimum wage for inflation going forward. I'm Jacob Sumner, and I approve this message.